This is a bull's wing, and we're going to be roasting it on the barbecue. Will it become crispy on the outside and juicy on the inside? Let's find out.
Big thanks to Napoleon Grills for sponsoring this episode.
Today we got a special project planned, and this project is called the bull's wing. It's not a very well-known cut of meat, but it's definitely spectacular. I've actually already tried this cut, but that time I cooked it really long at a low temperature. This time we're going to do it completely different. Here she is. If you've seen this before, then let me know down below in the comments. At the bottom of this cut there is a big bone. That is called the feather blade. And it's basically the shoulder of the cow. And this is also the reason that we call this the bull's wing. Now on top of that lays what some call the feather blade, or the flat iron steak. Now the feather blade is two flat iron steaks with a really big piece of tendon in between. I know it's all very technical butcher talk, but it's very important to understand that this is not an easy steak to cook. Of course you can do a low and slow, but it's not really morbid enough to get that extreme juicy brisket experience that I love so much. I really do enjoy a flat iron steak though. So my mind automatically went to why not cook it as a roast and then see if we can cut the steak out of it. I've never done this before, so let's find out together. First thing I'm going to do is clean it up a little bit. I got some connective tissue here on the bone. That's not going to look great. I'm going to remove that. And then we're going to check the other side. And as you can see, we got a big fat cap on top of this. Now I want to preserve that fat cap because we might get that picanha experience. However, I can't leave it as it is because it's just going to shrink up and become all weird looking. So I'm going to carve into it. And I actually want to carve into the tendon that lies underneath this fat cap. Normally I wouldn't, but I know this originally is a tough cut of meat. So I'm going to carve into it, creating a beautiful stripes, and then I'm going to cross cut it and make diamond shapes out of it. And as I said, I'm actually trying to cut into that silver skin underneath, that tendon that's keeping the muscle together. And here at the end, the fat cap ends, but the steak sits underneath that silver skin. You see that? That is the steak, and this is that silver skin. That's tough. So at the end here, I'm just going to remove that. I'm going to carve into it from the top. That's right. Wiggle my knife underneath. Now we're actually exposing the meat. Let's do that cross cut on the fat. And now it's time to season it. I'm just going to use a little bit of PITMASTERX Texas seasoning. Since we're doing a roast here, we're not going to burn anything. We don't have to worry about burnt seasoning because of the high temperatures. So I'm just going to let the seasoning do its job, get nice and sticky with it, flip it around, put some here on the sides. There we go. And now my bull's wing is all seasoned up. But this wasn't the challenging part. The challenging part comes now. You see, I need to figure out a way to cook the bull's wing evenly. I need to get that steak to a perfect 52 degrees Celsius, maybe 54 degrees, so that most of the fat will melt inside the steak and it becomes extremely juicy. The problem is though that there's a big bone at the bottom. So somehow I need the heat to get through that bone, cook the bottom of the steak, while at the same time I need the same amount of heat to roast the top of this flat iron steak that is connected. That's maybe called a feather blade in wherever you live. So in other words, it's going to be a challenging cook. On one side of the grill, I'm going to put some charcoal, stick in a couple of fire starters and light them up. Once they're lit, I'm going to put on a chunk of smoke wood, put the grill grates on, and of course I'm going to use a wireless thermometer to keep eye on that steak because I need to know exactly what's going on. So there she goes, our beautiful bull's wing in the barbecue. Opposite of the hot coals, with the bone pointing down towards the heat and the fat cap on top of it to protect itself from the hot convection air. Let's close the lid and get that barbecue to roasting temperatures. I'm looking for about 160 degrees Celsius. That means I'm going to open the top vent all the way and close the bottom vent to about halfway. And once I hit that 160 degrees Celsius, I'm going to start closing the bottom vent until the grill stabilizes. In the meantime, I'm going to use the app to set up a cook. We're going to eat beef and we're going to steak in particular. And of course ours is not in here. I'm going to just hit sirloin, make it 54 degrees. And now I know exactly what's going on. And that's important because I think we're going to be doing some adjustment during this cook to get it absolutely perfect. We're about half hour into the cook now and we're going to check. But look at the crust on the outside. the fat is already starting to crispen up. And of course that's a good sign, because I really would like that fat to melt. But I want it to render down from all sides evenly fast. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to rotate the bull's wing. Carefully, I'm going to be rotating this around, trying not to damage the fat. You can see the fat's rendering down here, it's dripping away. This is going really nice. I have a thermometer in that measures at several points, but I want to do some more checks just to make sure I got my temperature straight. Because I want to know one thing: how are we cooking at the bottom as well as at the top? So just below the fat cap and just above the bone. Let's check it out. I'm going to go in here just above the bone. Currently running at 9 degrees Celsius, and now just above the fat cap, 13 degrees Celsius. So that's about 30% difference in temperature. That means I definitely need to keep my eye on that difference. We're now a little over 45 minutes in, and I've got good news. We're doing something here too, but I've got good news with the meat, because currently we've got 26 degrees at the top as well as 26 degrees at the bottom of the roast. That means we're cooking more evenly. But while we wait, I have the opportunity to show you a really nice addition to this like this. Just imagine you're going to have this beautiful steak, and then you're going to take some cream cheese. Then you're going to grate some horseradish, about 3 tablespoons or so. Then add about 50 grams of Parmesan cheese, 2 tablespoons of the PITMASTERX Texas seasoning, and chop fine some chives. Add it to the bowl. Put it in a serving bowl. And now you made yourself one of the richest, cheesiest condiments you can add to steak. That's good. I'm kind of in despair at the moment, because we're now in over an hour and temperatures are just everywhere. Let me show you what I mean. You see, if I measure the temperature right here under the fat cap where I've been measuring it, it's about 42 degrees Celsius, right? So then I got underneath where the steak is, right there, it's 38, which is 4 degrees differentiation. At that temperature, it's fine. But then we go to the more flat part, and I measure there, and we're at 48. So basically now I have to make a choice. Am I going to overcook the thinner part or undercook the thicker part? I don't know. There's basically no way to do this right, but I've got a little trick up my sleeve. And to do that, I need to take this steak off in aluminum foil and basically use the heat of the bone to slowly cook the rest of the steak. You want to make sure you use some thick aluminum to make this happen. And I'm also going to rest it in my cooler. So I'm just going to tuck it in, close the lid, and make sure that all that extra heat just goes into the parts that have been cooking a little slower. My estimate is that it's going to take half an hour for it all to come together and become absolutely perfect, but I could be wrong. My thermometer is still in the meat, in the cooler, so I will know when the temperature stops rising and we're done evening out the temperature. Let's see how this will turn out. Ooh, that looks so good. Let's pick this up carefully. Wow, that is one beautiful piece of meat. All right, I'm gonna save those juices. That is pure goodness. Carefully, let's get the thermometer out. And now for that moment of truth. Let's undo the meat from the bone. Now the question is, did it work out? And there's only one way to find out. It's definitely really warm underneath that bone. Even though I rested it for an hour, definitely still on the warm side. I can feel it in my gloves. I'm kind of worried about this steak, even though it looks really good. And I rested it for a long time. That is what I'm looking at. That is actually not bad. We got a little gray here, a little gray here. That's all right, because that's where we connect to the bone. And all of those juices, man, look at that. I'm going to take a look on the inside. Wow, there we go. What? No way. That is actually perfect. Look at that. I didn't expect that. I seriously thought I might have a fail on my hands, but this is so much better than what I expected. Wow, that is awesome. Let's get a slice out of this because I want to show you the tendon That is so tough. You see, even here, the knife is struggling. It's a sharp knife. It's struggling with the tendon because it's so strong. You see that? And normally the butcher removes it for you. But with the bull's wing, you just keep it in. Now that means you have to take it out afterwards, like so. And then you end up with this delicious piece of meat. The flat iron steak, that is gorgeous. So personally, I don't actually mind having this tendon in. If I can cut it out myself, it's fine. But I do recommend if you serve it up to your guests that you cut it out for them, because otherwise their experience is just gonna be, well, not as good as it can be. This is my favorite moment, the gravy pour. There we go, look at that. That is so delicious. And I got my steak. I'm gonna get a slice out of this. First I'm gonna try the steak. There we go. Oh, absolute perfection. It's extremely beefy, it's tender, it's tasty. This steak has got everything that you want. I'm gonna add a little bit of cream cheese. Wow. Somehow horseradish and Parmesan cheese just mix so well with steak. Well, I'm gonna enjoy myself with this beautiful bull's wing. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, then leave us a big thumbs up and a comment down below. See you in the next one. Until then, eet smakelijk and keep on growing.